Hi guys, and welcome to a new video. So I was busy with exams for the last few weeks and I did not quite keep up with what was going on, and suddenly everybody was talking about Uniform Civil Code. People were like, is this the prime example of fascism in India, and is secularism and democracy going to end in India very soon? Is this the best thing that could have ever happened to India? Is this the best thing that could have happened to women? So on and so forth. So why are we talking about Uniform Civil Code at this time? From the time that BJP became a national party, they have been saying the same thing. And it was a very significant item in almost all of their election campaigns. And the opposition was always like, this is a prime example of how fascist the right wing or BJP was in this country. So why did they always support Uniform Civil Code? We will get to that in a bit, but last week on June 27th, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said this about Uniform Civil Code. Today, people are being instigated in the name of UCC. How can the country be run on two laws? The Constitution also talks of equal rights. Supreme Court has also asked to implement UCC. This statement from our Prime Minister came just a week after the 22nd Law Commission asked for suggestions from the general public and stakeholders related to the Unified Civil Code draft bill, which means that the Law Commission is seeking general opinion and the opinions of major stakeholders on how this bill should look like. And they have gotten 19 lakh responses so far. And there is also some rumors that the UCC bill would be tabled in August this year. And so that's why we are talking about Uniform Civil Code in this vigor at this time. So now the next question comes up, which is, many of us have learned about and we know or we think that Uniform Civil Code is a set of laws that would infringe upon the religious rights and religious privileges of people, especially the religious rights of minorities. The main reason for that is because it's been pushed by the right wing, which supports the Hindu majority. So this could automatically mean that the minority religious practices are going to be curbed now. Nothing could be farther from the truth. According to the definition of Uniform Civil Code, in India, the purpose of Uniform Civil Code is to replace the personal laws based on scriptures and customs of each religious community in the country with a common set governing every citizen. Personal law covers property, marriage, divorce, inheritance, and succession. Now, when we got independence, there was a great push to bring Uniform Civil Code across India, but it was not possible. Only include Article 44 in the Directive Principles of State Policy, which goes like, the state shall endeavour to secure for citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. So that is the limit of what they were able to do at that time. And as you all know, Directive Principles of State Policies are just advices or just directions on how to run the state, and they cannot be enforceable in any form. Why was Uniform Civil Code a good thing when we got independence? Because it would promote a significant amount of equality and secularism across the country. And a Uniform Civil Code could mean that every citizen should be under just one set of personal laws. To have just one set of rules for all of this meant a really good thing for the people, the democracy, secularism, and for governance. That was the major objective behind introducing a Uniform Civil Code. But as is apparent, it was not possible. And it is also worth noting that nobody has ever ventured into ever writing down or developing a Uniform Civil Code. So this would be a very new experience and exercise for this government. And for the same reason, we have no idea how a uniform civil code in any shape or form would look like in practice. What I mean is that since this is a completely new endeavor, we have no idea what the consequences would be of having a uniform civil code across the country. The British introduced the IPC, Indian Penal Code, and the CRPC, the Criminal Procedure Code, to govern all these aspects of Indian administrative. The British never cared how we actually lived or how we ran our business in day-to-day life. But when we got independence, the newly formed governments and the drafters of our constitution really wanted to have a uniform civil code that governed all the citizens equally. Because as we all know, India is a very diverse country, and with this diversity comes its own complications. So each community has their own laws regarding all of these issues. Each community, each religion has a set of rules by which we usually conduct our inheritance, succession, marriage, and so on. But then inherent in that diversity and complexity is the very important issue of discrimination, because most of these laws are archaic and they don't belong in the modern era. So not having a uniform civil code most often transpire into being a very discriminatory and prejudicial personal laws that attack and make the vulnerable more vulnerable. This includes children, especially illicit children, and women, senile populations, that is senior citizens, and so on. And that is one of the major reasons why our leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and B.R. Ambedkar wanted and pushed for uniform civil code. And the support for this code did not just extend to Ambedkar or Nehru, because almost all the secular liberal leaders at that time wanted this code. So then who all opposed it? Well, it was opposed by luminaries, all men of Hindu Mahasabha, traditionalist congressmen, and Muslims. They united to protect personal laws based on religious identities. It was perceived to be an assault on Hindu civilization as well as a threat to the identity of a religious minority. Nehru obviously folded in the pressure, and he dropped any further movement on UCC. This is mainly because Nehru had a very overt policy of minority appeasement, and that is mostly due to the partition. Nehru had an outright policy of defending, supporting, and appeasing minority populations and that was the definition of his secularism. And I am planning to make a video on this topic. Let me know if you are interested to know more about that. So Nehru folded, and we no longer had a uniform civil code. So because of the secularism, he thought that it would be a good idea to completely abandon a uniform civil code and replace that with a Hindu code bill. The Hindu code bill replaced the Hindu personal laws by enacting the Hindu code bills in the mid-50s. The Hindu Marriage Act 1955, the Hindu Succession Act 1956, the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act 1956, the Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act 1956. These laws were not a mere codification of Hindu law, but also an abrogation or revocation of many Hindu practices and traditions. Whereas Muslims continue to be governed by Muslim personal law, largely driven by the opinion of Muslim community leaders. And this very apparent and outright bias from part of Nehru was criticized by almost all the major leaders at that time. J.P. Kribalini, a socialist leader, who said that like a Hindu code bill, a Muslim code bill should also come into force, because this could empower women and bring them to modern era. And he accused the Congress government of being communal, because the law of monogamy was just given to Hindus and not to Muslims. Similarly, Dr. Rajendra Prasad vehemently opposed the Hindu Code Bill on the premise that unilateral and arbitrary decisions on the enactment of such laws cannot be taken without taking into consideration the opinions of the masses, and there had been widespread opposition among the Hindu community vis-a-vis the Hindu Code Bill. He even threatened to refuse to sign the law, which resulted in major confrontation between the Prime Minister and then President of India. But even under that kind of opposition, Nehru went ahead with the Hindu Code Bill and did nothing to reform the personal laws and the encroachment of religion into Muslim areas of governance. And this is the main reason why even RSS and BJP support and push for a uniform civil code, because it is biased, arbitrary and unilateral. It is always better to have a uniform civil code than to have a civil code for just one community. Now, 3 court cases are significant here. The courts have repeatedly said in these cases that if there was a uniform civil code in India, these cases would not have happened in the first place. The Supreme Court and various high courts have counseled the governments to enforce a UCC for more than 4 decades. The Shah Banu case 1985, which is very famous, dealing with maintenance to divorced Muslim women. Thereafter, the Jordan Dainde case 1985, examining the Christian Secession Act. The Sarala Mudgal case 1995, against deceitful Islamic conversion for polygamy, and the John Vallamattam case 2013 on secession rights to the recent Delhi High Court judgment. The RSS and BJP had stood behind Uniform Civil Code for the longest time, and they have always in a way threatened the country by saying that they will introduce and pass the Uniform Civil Code in this country. The next important question would be, do we need a Uniform Civil Code? The major benefit of a Uniform Civil Code is always for women, because in almost all the religions, women are subjugated, and they have almost all religions have a very patriarchal system of laws. And we are a democracy which upholds equality. So having a uniform civil code could mean that men and women could have equal rights in these very important matters of succession, inheritance, marriage, guardianship and so on. Now, the people in minorities also have huge benefits from uniform civil code, but you really need to think about it that way, because again, a uniform civil code could have equality, and when you say equality, it means equality for everyone. UCC could become a way for ensuring the equality of all people regardless of gender, race, creeds, caste and so on. And another very important positive side of UCC is that it is mandated by law and it goes through a proper legislative process, and there cannot be multiple laws governing one thing, and you just cannot make up multiple laws from here and there out of the blue if it goes through a legislative process. Because more often than not, the religious authorities just kind of makes up laws, or they have their own process of creating laws, and that will be enforced, but that can be curtailed or regulated if we have a uniform civil code. And if there is any problem in that process, we can always bring in amendments and change those things according to the time. There won't be any infringement of any religious practices or any religious liberties because we are introducing uniform civil code. Because if you really look at these premises, they are marriage, divorce, inheritance and succession. These are governed by religious laws, but they are not inherently religious in nature. Just like Sharia or Manusmriti, we know that these are religious rule books, which govern people's everyday lives. I don't want to comment on the merit or demerits of Sharia or Manusmriti, but they are not modern and they do not uphold modern democratic values. And that is reason enough to change them and to introduce something that is liberal, democratic and secular. And the major concerns raised are, of course, listening or not listening to everybody's opinion on UCC, which is a genuine concern. The question of whether there would be any discrimination in the process of developing UCC. Would it be secular and liberal in the sense that we understand secular and liberal now? And the third concern would be that a uniform civil code has never been drafted for the entire country, and it's going to be an arduous process. It's not going to be easy. So that is also a very genuine concern. How are they going to introduce these set of personal laws that would govern everyone equally? These concerns, I think, are all the more reason for us to stand together and contribute constructively and actively to the process of creating these laws. Because the main objective of Uniform Civil Code is to do away with the archaic religious laws that come from a completely different era, which is still governing our life and our well-being. Since UCC is about changing these archaic laws and creating laws that would resonate with today's needs and today's aspirations, we need to be carefully and actively be a part of this process rather than objecting against it and rejecting it outright because of our own prejudices. So what do you think about the Uniform Civil Code? I'm very eager to know. Please let me know in the comment section. And do you think that it would be a good thing or a bad thing for the country? Please let me know. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button and share this video with somebody else if they are also interested to know about Uniform Civil Code. Subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Thank you. Hi guys, and here is the first book I have written, Life in a Ziploc Bag. It's the story of 4 teens living in a city and the impactful reality of modern life, where we often chase love, intoxication and adventure. Does it seem like a story that you would be interested in? If so, please check it out on Amazon or Flipkart.